Up next, we are welcoming a remarkable expert with an exciting session. Everyone, please allow me to introduce Mr. Mitch Rankin, here to shed light on improving user onboarding and adoption on Web3 Exploring. Mr. Mitch is the co-founder of Forward Protocol, the WordPress for Web3. Forward enables thousands of combinations of potential dApp, subunit, and blockchain deployment flows with its no-code platform. He's here to provide us with expert knowledge. Please join me with welcoming him on stage with a huge round of applause.
My voice is a little bit husky. I've just come from Token 2049 in Singapore, and I don't know if anybody was there. Jeez, I don't think I've spoken that much in a long time. It was actually amazing to me to see, you know, when you go to a conference and you see so many people and you realize there's a bear market and it's actually crypto winter, you realize there's something happening here. And it's funny, this morning I walked around, I spoke to a lot of people. There are a lot of people here at this conference today that have never ever been to a Web3 blockchain event before. And that is super interesting to me. There are people from law firms, people from accounting firms, people from normal businesses. And I just want to speak to you about onboarding into Web3, what we see, the way we've looked at it, maybe the way you could look at it a bit differently. We could have a bit of a conversation. But just to start off, you know, where I come from is from a very traditional background. We raised investors and we built hotels and mixed-use developments, condominiums in South Africa and in the US and Florida. And in about 2018, I really wanted to get into like an online space. It wasn't blockchain. I didn't know anything about blockchain. And I ended up buying an English language website. And the only reason I bought it was I'm quite a tactile learner. I can't learn theoretically. I needed to get my hands dirty and figure out something. So I bought this website and started learning. And I find myself sitting at the Bell restaurant, which overlooks the Great Siege Bell in the Grand Harbor in Malta. I don't know if any of you guys have been there. It's a beautiful view. I was having a beer, and I was just sitting there thinking, and my mind was completely turned upside down. The guy that I'd bought this website from had sold it because he was taking the money and he was going to develop a blockchain application. I'd never heard about blockchain before. It was the first time I'd ever come across it. And he told me about the potential of possibly using this technology to monetize the website that I'd bought. It was completely out of left field. I didn't know what to do with it. And I thought, well, he seems like a smart guy. I didn't even have an online presence. I had to hire everybody around me to help me. And I started learning. The problem that I had was that the space kept moving ahead of me. It was too fast for me. So every time I learned something new came up. Maybe some of you guys feel like that. It was confusing. It was so complicated. The terminology was different. There were things that I didn't know anything about, wallets, all the different stuff that is coming across my path. And every time I thought I'd figured it out, I thought I'd figured out how to use this technology, it just seemed to get more and more difficult. And so I asked myself this question: if this new technology, which is supposed to be groundbreaking, I mean, we know that the world financial systems are in an absolute mess. We know the business system's in a mess. You heard from the panel here, guys from real estate, banking, trying to figure out big things that impact society as you know, a global whole. And yet with all this technology, there's still 3 to 4 billion people that don't have access to basic financial systems. So we're trying to fix things that are broken, but we haven't even built things for people that need it. And for us to really get to adoption, which everybody talks about being 1 billion users coming into this Web3 space, we need to fix a couple of things. So the question I asked myself then was, why is it so slow? The reason that people can't actually come into this space en masse is because it's built for thousands of users. It's not built for millions and billions of users. And for that to happen, things need to change. Technology needs to change. Ideas need to change. And that creates a massive opportunity for everybody sitting here. And when we look at, like if I look at it from my perspective, I'm a normal business owner coming from a very traditional background. And I try to figure out, like, how can I use my skills in actually getting into this space without relearning everything, without becoming some sort of a technical person, without changing my vocabulary? I mean, maybe you're the same as me. When I spoke to my circle of friends and told them that I was starting to learn about blockchain and crypto, they rolled their eyes. People walked out of the room. I mean, people weren't interested. I was frothing. I was like, man, you guys are going to understand this new technology. It's going to change what we do. And yet, most people just didn't understand it. And it's exactly the same today. If you look back a couple of years at the money in venture capital that went into the space, it was like 2.6 billion. And yet this year, almost as much of that has gone into the space already, with 20% of that going into startups, like pre-seed. So you can see how the interest in the actual business environment is culminating and growing, and is coming together where they're looking for decent projects, for things that will actually make a difference. So there are a couple of things that actually need to happen for adoption to take place, for people to, and I'm talking about the general populace, people with normal businesses, not big corporations, big industries, etc. People like you and I that are out there that they don't really care about the technology, but they want what it offers. All the promises of what it offers, they want that. And the first thing is that you have to make it really easy to use. I mean, to get somebody to start right now and say to them, look, you want to come and use my application, don't connect a wallet. They say, well, what's a wallet? Then you've got to get them to download a wallet. You've got to teach them how to use MetaMask or something like that. It's just too far away from them in most instances, unless they really have a high motivation to do it. The second thing is when you look right across the space, you see all the different choices. There's so many different chains, so many applications, so many wallets. Where does somebody start? If somebody starts at one point, how do they navigate through this in a technological way to get to another point? And to solve this, a solution needs to be made that is completely agnostic, almost like Switzerland. You've got to be chain agnostic, you've got to be developer language agnostic, you've got to sit somewhere that allows people to enter from any point they want and then exit at any point that they want. And I believe that this will create interoperability right across the ecosystem. So, if this is obvious to me, and I'm just a layman, I mean, isn't it obvious to everybody else? So why is there this lack of incentive to actually do this? It's because each ecosystem is trying to set themselves up to be the main player. I mean, let's face it, everybody wants the biggest share of the market. So on the one hand, I see people talking about interoperability and working together, etc. On the other side, I see exactly the opposite, because there's no real solution that actually connects people right across the space. So think about it from your perspective, from your industry where you sit. What are the solutions that are there that are available for you to apply this type of technology in a seamless way across your industry? Maybe you do come from a banking environment and it's a bit closer, or maybe you come from another environment that's much more aligned, a financial services, or so you can fit into DeFi. But what if you're a normal business owner? How do you actually fit into this equation? So when people talk about they want to get adoption, we want to get more people in, unless we do something drastic, unless something changes, nothing's going to change. And the way that we actually get to adoption, the way we get better ideas, I'll give you an example I'm from South Africa, I live in Cape Town. The problems we have in Africa are very, very different to the problems you have in the Middle East. And if you go out into a business environment and you go and speak to local business owners, and you go up through the continent, you'll see some guys here today that are from Africa. Take some time to go and ask them, what are the problems that you have in your areas? How are you solving those problems? You're going to find there's no ways of them solving those problems or the solutions that are available in a developed market. It's because the infrastructure is completely different. The informal markets are completely different. And yet, in a lot of instances, blockchain technology is much more relevant in those markets than they are in a developed market, because a lot of the systems are already set up. And that creates opportunity. It creates an opportunity where if you can look at a completely different focus, where you can think not from your perspective, but partner with people in those regions and think from their perspective, you can find solutions to problems. And that'll bring in hundreds of millions of people into the space, because those solutions are not available in a normal developed market, in that environment. And even some of the best startups that you see out there are not going to be applicable in those environments. So when people come into this environment, and I'm not talking about you guys. You guys you all look pretty tech savvy. You look like you know what's going on. I'm talking about normal people. When people come into this environment, where do they start? How do they get going? What's the first step that they need to take? The first thing that they find that they bump into is this knowledge barrier. So they need to start learning. But what if we could abstract that knowledge barrier away completely? What if we could take it away? What if there was no knowledge barrier? Each one of us sitting here today has got tech skills. They might not be technical skills, but we can access a smartphone, websites, apps, etc. And we have a large degree of knowledge that we've built up over time. What we do in Web3 is we tell people, come in and then relearn a whole new set of skills. And that keeps a lot of people out because they cannot actually access it in that way. So how can we actually abstract that knowledge barrier away? What could we do? What examples could we see that have actually happened in the tech world around us over the last 20 years, where a company has looked at this exact problem and said, how do we take this problem and make it really, really simple for millions of people so they can come in and actually use this? And to do this, they need to actually do two things. The first one is the technology barrier, and the second one is the financial barrier. Those are the two biggest hurdles in coming into the space. So if you, as a company now, want to get going, you're a startup, what do you have to do? If you're a non-technical founder, you need to find someone with a technological background. And the second thing is you've got to find some money to get going. And it's probably going to be pretty costly to get going, hire the right tech team, etc., and what have you. So how do you overcome that? What examples can we look at that actually overcome that? The single best example that I can understand and see over the last 20 years is a platform. The one thing that they focused on was a very, very simple user deployment experience. So they changed the way that we interact with technology. And the company I want to talk to you about, just as an example, is Wordpress. So if you think back, when Wordpress, or before Wordpress, if you wanted to build a website, what did you do? You would go out, you'd raise some money. If you didn't have it already, it probably cost you between $20,000 and $50,000. You'd get a team in that was really experienced, and they would come in and they'd actually build this website for you. Did anybody ever go through that process? Okay, one here. The rest of you are probably too young. But in those days, that was the process. It was expensive. How do you build a website today? You go to a platform like WordPress, you download the application, you get a template, you customize the template by going to the plugin library, you get some widgets, and if you've got very, very basic skill, just with the drag and drop interface, you can actually get that whole process going. You can get everything set up. Now, what is that process? What does it look like from a financial point of view? If you are going to participate in something like that, is there any potential? What does it look like? Let's just have a look through how this progressed. So before, that's a typo, before 2003, before WordPress, it was expensive to build a website. In 2003, there were 40 million websites online. Last year, there were 1.8 billion websites online, a third of which, 800 million odd, were WordPress websites. And that ecosystem as a whole, last year, did just over $500 billion. A lot of that went to business owners, people that developed those particular plugins, people that developed those widgets, those applications, people that developed the templates. They got that money. And when people come to me and say, how do you actually get into an ecosystem like this? Where do I start? The people that build the tools for businesses that are going to come online, the normal businesses that are out there, are the guys that are going to make the money ultimately as this grows. So the question to ask is, can a platform actually be built like this that can provide the same sort of functionality as they do in WordPress? And we looked at it from this point of view. I'm just going to show you what we did. You can use this as an example. If you want to try it out, you can with pleasure. It's certainly something that we're not going to do individually. It's an ecosystem, a group of people that need to work together to actually get this done. But a practical solution would really look like this. It would enable thousands of different combinations of dApp, subnet, and blockchain development flows. That basically means if you came in as an end user, would have a selection in a marketplace, exactly like in WordPress, where you can go and you can select what you want. It's not prescribed. You can actually select what you like. The second thing it would do, it would allow a developer. Now, understanding that if you're a developer in this room, you typically develop in one language and you deploy in that particular ecosystem. Imagine you were a developer that developed in Rust, and you could put your application on a platform where an end user could come in and they could select to deploy that application on an EVM chain. It would make a massive difference to you because you wouldn't have to relearn, and you could actually give an end user the functionality or the opportunity for them to select what they'd like to do, where they'd like to go. So all you're doing is providing the functionality. They don't see the back end at all. And what a platform like this would do would create a flywheel. It's almost a pay-as-you-go, like the mobile industry, where you have people coming in and paying for services that they need. They select those services on a service-by-service basis, where they can decide how much of the service they want, if they want to continue using the service or not. They can actually go into a marketplace and see a number of different templates, widgets, plugins, where they can select based on user reviews. They can see it based on ratings. They can see it based on security audits, the number of deployments, etc. And this was our look at it. This is what we did in this industry. If you guys want to go and have a look, you can with pleasure. We said if we created a platform like this, how could we benefit normal businesses out there? How could we actually contribute to adoption? And what could we do? So from our point of view, what we did was we built a platform which has got 800 chains integrated. It's got 5 developer languages at this point in time. And it allows a user to come in from 2 points of view, either as a developer or as a user, and to integrate and to use it. So if you'd like any more information, you can go there and you can try it out yourself and see how it works for you. But one thing I want to encourage you is if you're starting off this journey like I did, just interested. You don't know. I know I spoke to Azim there earlier on from a legal background. It's the first time he's here. He's just looking at this and trying to figure out how does he take his skills and implement this in an area like this. This is the type of platform you can use to actually validate an idea. Very, very simple. Doesn't cost a lot of money. If you can find other platforms like this, go ahead and do it. But the idea is to come in with your skills, find a market, validate your idea in half an hour. Don't take 6-9 months to raise $100,000 and then try and do it. There's a lot of things that need to change in our world. The more people that are working on these type of solutions, the quicker we're going to get there and the more impact we're going to have. But I wish you all the best of luck in your research and what you guys are doing here today. It's been great speaking to you. Thanks very much.